Dearest gentle listeners, we are the Whistledowners. Like our predecessor, Lady Whistledown, who breathed down the necks of 1800s Mayfair society, we are 4 headstrong women. On this podcast, we'll analyze and discuss the complex and eyeball-catching escapade that is the hit Netflix show Bridgerton. Join us as we delve deeply into the show's plots, themes, characters, and more. Are you ready? Let's begin.
Oh, hey guys! Welcome back to the discussion again.
Hello, Joe. Nice to see you, everyone.
We will be continuing our discussion on the families in the town. Elle unfortunately couldn't join us, so it's just the 3 of us.
While Elle was not available to record with us the segment on families, which will ultimately be divided into 2 parts, I thought it good if we can record separately. Therefore, there will be scattered Elle's thoughts. Do you want to say anything?
Yes, hi everyone. I've just been away for a little bit. I've been busy.
Anytime you hear this familiar sound, Elle will take over for a while. We hope that you shall enjoy both this episode and the following segment, in which we shall turn our attention to Featheringtons, Mondridges, Bassetts, and perhaps even more.
Guys, how have you all been?
Good. I went to the beach yesterday with my husband. Yeah. It was only his second time going to the beach ever, because despite living near the coast, it's like beach days with a kid are just like hard to plan for. But now that I found a good beach for us to go to that has like easy parking and stuff, so hopefully he'll be able to go more because he loves it. And I felt really guilty that he's already almost 4 and he's only been to the beach once. And we live literally like 25 minutes from the beach.
That's beautiful, yeah.
Let's come in handy, yeah.
Spoiler, how have you been?
A bit busy with family stuff. Then my tonsils were a bit swollen, but my friend said that she wants to, use this multi-sport card. So we went to play badminton with her boyfriend and another friend. And the next morning I woke and I couldn't speak. But luckily I got well pretty quickly. Do not go to play badminton when you're not feeling that good. Even if it's just 60 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've actually been quite busy with the Fringe. We've had like our busiest week so far. Kind of had some incidents here and there. Some really great shows. For those who are in Edinburgh, we have some great... I'm trying to self-promo, but there are some great shows and I'm very excited. Like for a Regency fan, have you heard of Ostentatious?
Gosh, no. That sounds really familiar.
Yeah, so basically it's a West End show that does improvs on Jane Austen novels. They take titles.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. It sounds familiar.
I got to see the premiere of the 1-week stint at the...
That's so cool.
Nice.
And it was really cool. It was at the McEwen Hall, for those who know where it is. And I was in the upper balcony seat, so I could see it like from a bird's eye view.
Is it like is it comedy kind of improv?
Yeah, it's they lean towards comedy and romance, and I didn't really like the improv situation I was put in because it's Mrs. Darcy and the incontinent gardener.
Oh God.
So it was funny, but it was very, very uncomfortable for me. Yeah, but there was lots of merch outside, and I bought like something for like a tea towel for my mom to send. But it was really good. There's other Regency shows that are available, so yeah, it's been quite a dream watching some of them.
What are your favorite things, like overall, not just Regency, that you've seen at the Fringe? I think our listeners might be interested.
Okay, so for those who can access Underbelly, so there are different venues. There's Pleasance, there's Underbelly. I got to see, what was the name? Ernest with the question mark. So basically the whole situation is that you do the Importance of Being Earnest play, but the only caveat is that the actor who's supposed to be playing Ernest doesn't turn up. So they bring people from the audience to play Ernest. Gwen gets very, very drunk at one point, so somebody has to step in for her. And it was the first show ever, and I was like in splits because they literally put like a middle-aged man in women's clothing, and it was so funny.
I love that play, so I would enjoy that.
And I saw Tapeface, who is like a comedian, and he's basically a mime. He does improv, and yeah, I got to see that one. And today is actually the 10th is actually his last show ever. So
Wow.
last show at the Fringe. Then I think he comes back next year.
Kind of funny because I do not think Joe is as much into Austen as others.
I know.
It's just because I saw a lot of promos on Ostentatious, and Ostentatious actually was a sold out house. I just got to like go on the complimentary seats, and I was wanting to see what it was all about because even with this podcast we've been talking about Austen, and I wanted to just get my Regency repertoire. It was a great way of catching up. But all right, let's start with the different families, and we wanted to focus, I think, on the first 4 seasons. I know the 4th season isn't premiered, but we've got enough information to go on, and we know it's Benedict's time, and we also know that we've got the Gun-Li-Baek. Should we start with Sophie's family?
I think it's a great idea because, the wait is still long, and let's be honest, I think the fans are kind of, starving at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we got one. I think we got an article yesterday, and there was some clues that Pauline's going to have a big part in Benedict's storyline. Eloise is going to have some pressure from, like that being a spinster. A lot of people took it as her being season 5. More or less, it's coming in February, so we'll get some promo at the end of this year by fall.
Yeah,
but that's kind of what I'm talking about because, in terms of main plot and main couple, I think that not that they are sidelined, but, regarding the information, like, it's been weeks, even months, when we get no info regarding them, like in terms of storyline, in terms of character arcs. We get Pauline tidbits, we get Eloise's tidbits, but I feel bad because I frequent Benefit subreddit, and I think that at this point it's a bit unfortunate to us.
It's on purpose, right? By the production.
Oh yeah.
It's deliberate because they want it to be a surprise, or they don't want to spoil the whole plot. It's a little silly because honestly, it's like people have read the books, like it's or like at least know the plot of the book, even if they haven't read it because it's being discussed. So the fact that they do this every season, like certain things are like a big secret, and it's like no one is watching this show for the plot twists, guys.
Will Colin and Penelope get together?
It's like we know they will. It's
just like the how, But I think I understand it because right now, in terms with Netflix marketing Bridgerton, we've got like 3 mega hits right now. Wednesday just dropped. The second part's gonna drop soon. Then we have Stranger Things. Like a lot of things are gonna overshadow Bridgerton.
To be the voice of Benefit fans, I think that the unanimous response to that is we do not care.
Yeah, they're just
Benefit content. They have a little clip, few stills, and that's it. Drop some stills. People will, spark enough, conversation or another clip.
They're still like celebrating their 20th anniversary, so something might drop soon, maybe around fall time. But this is right now the summer, so maybe they're just finishing. At least Wednesday should just finish the second half, and then they'll start releasing like
and
teasers.
Stranger Things is going to be huge because it's like the last season too, so it's like in a way it's like makes sense. Like once that's over, then there'll be more space in the to say I am a big Stranger Things fan, so I'm very excited for that.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm very, very excited. It always has been playing on anniversaries as well, so I think the 5th anniversary of Bridgerton season 1 is coming up, so I mean
it's coming up in December. I do not think they were going to wait until December. And let's be honest, once the release is coming soon, you drop many content, but you kind of are overwhelmed by the content by that point. Too many information. I remember when Poland season was coming and they dropped 40 stills at one time, just dropping stills all over the place.
Like, why not
little tidbits, few stills, or one clip. I think maybe by the start of September, and I think Benefit fans will be more than happy with that. I must admit that I was in fact mistaken. Currently, Benoffee actually have more content than Pollen had at this point. Regarding the things to expect, if we would follow the promo timeline of season 3, we should at this time be suspecting release dates and all episode titles in near future. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. We need to go back to the lovely family of Sophie Beckett. Beck.
The Gun-Li-Baek family. I wanted to say, do we want to zoom out a little bit to talk about sort of the fact that, the families, shape each of these characters so much? Sophie's whole backstory is about her family.
What I'm excited about, we are not having, I know we said that there's an evil stepmother trop, right, for Araminta.
Mm-hmm.
When I reread the book An Offer from a Gentleman, I kind of understand where they're going, creating empathy for Araminta, which is thanks to what we saw with Portia.
It seems to me like Jess Brownell as a showrunner is sort of a little more interested in humanizing some of these villains. In the books in particular, these characters are all very flat.
Oh, yeah. But I would actually argue that Cressida's, humanization arc starts with season 2 with that, slight glance as, Elle and Pen are leaving from the ball. In the book, it's kind of one-dimensional a lot of time. My question to you would be, what is your preference?
I think the preference is for them to humanize her a bit. I just think that's inherently more interesting. Do you think that the show benefits sometimes from having these, really nasty villain characters like Burbrook? Or sort of Cressida in seasons 1 and 2 was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it works because those are side characters. The Toxic Lords, they kind of come in to cackle evilly for a couple of scenes, and they're fun to watch. Araminta, I think, is too central a character to not humanize her at all. And I sometimes actually think villains are more chilling when they are a little bit humanized. They're more realistic. Even think of the worst villain, like Voldemort. When you learn a little bit more about his backstory, he becomes worse, not better, And I actually really like what they've done with Portia and with Cressida. Cressida in season 3 can still be an antagonist in the plot, but you can still feel some sympathy for them, or you can feel sorry about them and for them in some ways. I don't think it has to be so black and white. I think that's kind of boring.
I agree with Rox's thoughts. This was not with Bridgerton, and I know I'm a little bit on the summer. I turned pretty high for that or not.
A lot of our listeners probably watched that too.
Yeah. I was so engrossed with the third book, and I didn't like Jeremiah's character a lot in the book. I thought he was so flat. But then when I see him on the TV show and how he's being so idiotic, ordering the most expensive something in
Nepo baby.
This sort
Granted, in Bridgerton, everyone's a Nepo baby, except for poor Sophie.
Yeah, true.
When you're seeing what he's going through, you kind of understand, he has some things that he's not fixed. Mm-hmm. He still has an inferiority complex. His dad, again, compares him to his older brother.
We will go back to Bridgerton. All I wanted to say is, people gave him a lot of crap because he chose the most expensive item on the menu. But the important thing is that this was the item chosen by his father. You can see it as more of him trying to emulate him, not realizing that, of course, this dinner is paid by, someone else, and we're ordering the most expensive food.
But that also shows how, he's so wrapped up in wanting to validate himself in someone that he's not realizing that there's some emotional maturity needed. So going back to what I think about Araminta, there's spoilers for the book for those who have not read the book. So there is a thing where she did not get a baby. She doesn't get a portion of anything. She just gets that she can be provided for by the next heir.
And the thing is, Araminta she's twice widowed. She married once, had 2 daughters, that guy died, and then she married again. Sophie's father, he died. So basically, especially in Chinese culture, I could say she would have been seen as pretty bad luck. Having 2 daughters and 4 husbands dying. You're bad luck. So for her to be the way she is, culturally would make a lot of sense.
The thing is that the Earl does give her something, if you manage getting Sophie a match as well. He set up a trust for her. She does keep Sophie, but finds a loophole of keeping her as a maid.
It is Cinderella. It's a Cinderella trope. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Araminta really, in the books, is one of the worst people.
Honestly, my problem with this, she is so villainous that it's, just laughable. Why are you doing this? Like, I understand why you do not like Sophie, and I understand that by the end of the book you were required to, have her in the house, but it's such a ridiculous, amount. So I'm hoping, the show fixes that. People had trouble with Catelyn Stark in A Song of Ice and Fire. I never had, because her issues with illegitimate children are very well explained within the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Araminta will be handled similarly, because Sophie is the living embodiment of the thing that the Earl can have children. And this is important because she couldn't, give him the heir, so she could, secure her position as the Countess. She has, children from the previous marriage, but Sophie is the living proof that he actually could have children. Of course, having her in the house isn't, going to make her happy. I wonder how will they handle, Earl going forward. I think his name is Richard. I wonder if they actually will have him live longer. So maybe the entire will could be, set to the audience at the start of the season, without Sophie being there. I'm not certain. We do not really know how will they handle Sophie's backstory and how book accurate it will be. Regardless of this, I think that they will try to make Araminta more understandable.
In the book, I like it as it is, because I think when the book was written and how the book was written, it fits. But with the way how Bridgerton is done, I feel like everybody's humanized to a point. The thing that happened in the book needs to happen. And I don't think that would make Araminta a bad person. Because if you look at it from her perspective, I could see why Araminta would react the way she did. For her, Sophie's not her daughter.
On the other hand, on behalf of those who, support book canon and who support more villainous side of Araminta, I get it. I'm not certain whether you ever saw the show Fleabag, but there's very popular character of stepmother, and she is very, comedic. She is ridiculously, unlikable, but you understand, her position as well. And because of the main character, who is also not that good of a person, it doesn't come off as, so unrealistic. Of course, Sophie is likable person, or will likely be likable character, but I hope that they will give Araminta some, edge.
I will say that I do enjoy an evil villain. It's not that I don't want her to be evil. I definitely do. I feel like that's a very enjoyable trope. Like, evil stepmother is a fun trope. I apologize to all the stepmothers out there who I'm sure are very, very nice. I kind of love a lot of the villains on this show, and I think that Katie Lung is going to have so much fun playing this part. Like, I hope she gets to really ham it up and chew the scenery as this, evil villain. I just want to see the moments of humanity in her that make it realistic, right? I just want to see, the reason that she's like that. Not that it excuses it, but just that it, makes the character seem more like a fully fledged human being, even if they're, the freaking worst. With Cressida, they almost, went the other way and made her, really sympathetic. Now I'm just rooting for her. I don't want that with Araminta. I still want her to be evil. Because I kind of think Sophie's story works best. Especially the end of the story works best if Araminta is a real jerk. Think about season 1 Portia. Season 1 Portia was horrible. But you did see her little flashes of vulnerability, and that made her a well-rounded character, even though at the end of the season you're still you're the worst,
I think Portia, functions as a foil to Violet, and I think that she will be the foil to, or Araminta will be foil to her, kind of like Portia, who was not redeemed.
So
some people look at, that story and believe that this is the way they will handle Araminta. I do not think so. I think that they specifically partially did Portia, not just, for the sake of Ben's story and Colin's story, but for the sake of, the story with Araminta. Another reason why I think it was actually a good decision to pass on Benedict until this season. But of course, we do not yet know how will they handle it. We only get few tidbits and them, saying Araminta will be humanized.
Kind of supported by book canon, because Portia in the books, she is really critical of Penn. She's a villain. She's just not a very good mom. But she still remains.
She's Mrs. Bennet.
She's Mrs. Bennet, 100%. And in the show, Oh my gosh, I love the Mrs. Bennet references with the Featherington family, but I think that Araminta functions differently in the plot. She's a true villain. I
She's
don't think
Mrs.
that
Norris, to those who know.
100%. I just don't think that I don't think that the Spinoffi's plot can function without Araminta as a villain unless they change way more. Whereas Pollen's plot kind of doesn't necessarily need. Portia's not that essential to their plot. She's more part of why Penn is the way she is.
Joe, do you want to jump in?
Yeah,
At any
I
point?
think, yeah, no, but I think also because it was very interesting that Netflix had introduced this, I am not your enemy, I'm your mother. There with from Wednesday season 2, and then the first one that popped up was Portia and Penelope. But again, it goes back to the Gilded Cage. These mothers are coming out of cages, and that defines their motherhood in some way. I think what we're gonna see with the Gun-Li-Baek family is the distinction between blood and adoption. I mean, I do hope they tread lightly with being an adopted child. Myself, I was blessed to have a mom of my, who was not we were not linked by blood, but she's my mom in every way possible. And I feel empathy for Sophia. She's been in this family and she was so excited to have this family, but to have that hard reality that she will never be accepted.
Sometimes it is the way it is. You can't choose your family, but you can kind of choose your future.
The fact is that she's able to understand that, Rosamund takes to it like a fish, respecting her mom's, and we've been teased that Rosamund is a mini-me of Araminta, and Posy is the one who's more dreamy and more unserious. And I think Posy and, Sophie will connect. We see that there can be better bonds, in a mixed family. So I'm excited to see that, because whenever a stepmother trope it's it's so overused that they're evil.
It's interesting that the show
Rox?
did such so many references to Cinderella and the evil stepsisters with the Featheringtons, when they must have known that this other family that actually has that trope in the books was going to be coming up in a couple of seasons. I didn't even know there were books when I first started watching, and it was immediate to me. I was like, oh, that's the stepsisters from every Cinderella. In the first season, I swear to God, the first time you see the Featheringtons, they look like the Cinderella, the Disney Cinderella stepsisters. They're dressed that way. Portia and Prudence are so ugly stepsister.
Yeah, one is mean, one is very
not
dumb.
that they're ugly, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder, what Julia Quinn's process was. We know that she famously started with Simon's backstory and then, developed Bridgerton family over it. So I wonder, how much she, was like, oh, this sibling will have this trope and this trope and this trope. I think that Penelope is, mentioned in the first book. So maybe whether she was maybe planning her to be the Cinderella archetype and have that Cinderella story only to change her mind later. Second thought, let's be honest, Cinderella trope is one of the most used. The only thing is that sometimes it's more, more in your face, and sometimes it's, less in your face, but especially romance genre. But I will be, honest, my friend, when we were watching the start of season 3, and Pen comes to the staircase and she's like, oh, Cinderella. And I'm like, yeah. I think I actually spoiled it at the time. I was like, no, that trope is coming later. Sorry. Yeah. And she was like, oh, all right.
I think that is what dissuaded me from Benoffee at first. No offense to Benoffees, because look, that's why I don't like the Cinderella trope, because it's overused like anything. There's no, there's no thing about doesn't the prince not, because he's wealthy, wouldn't he not have had something that, she is a poor person who has been a maid in a middle class. And then I saw Ever After, which was a more mature return where he did feel betrayed. There was some consequences to whatever happened. There was a little more nuance. And then when she said, no, it's not exactly the Cinderella trope, it's actually the forbidden love trope, I said, that was something that drew me in. It was not about the Cinderella story. It was about he's gonna figure out who she is beyond the mask. He sees her for who she is as a person, but right now they have that barrier. So yeah.
Every trope has its fans and, those who do not really like it. And I think that Love at First Sight is one of those tropes which has some defenders, but more people do not like it because they just think it's kind of lazy. I don't think that they're abandoning Cinderella trope. They will begin with Cinderella and Love at First Sight, and then, more develop it into the forbidden love trope. I don't know who you are trope. But I think the Cinderella, it's a spectacle and works very nicely in cinematography.
Yeah.
It doesn't work as well in the book.
I will say I do like the Cinderella trope, but I don't love Love
Very
at First Sight, which is a very weird combination. I like the Cinderella story because I love an underdog. It's why I love Penelope. It's why I love Book Sophie. Sophie is the thing about season 4 I'm the most excited about. So if they manage to get that combination right of Cinderella trope plus forbidden love, I think it's gonna slap.
Okay, so why don't we move on to the sisters, Rosamund and Posy? I'm so sorry. Do you guys find Posy's name a little bit weird?
No, I love
As a sister?
it. It's so cute. Posy.
First time I'm hearing it as a proper first name. I could see it as a nickname,
Yeah.
but I cannot see it's a first name.
Oh,
for
like
some
because
reason.
it's not formal enough. I don't know. It sounds very Regency to me, but maybe it is more common as like a nickname.
I feel like Renesmee with Twilight. I was 13 when, the people were like, this is such a weird name. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's as weird of a name as other names. Posy to me doesn't sound as weird, as others. Honestly.
And she's like, so
Yeah, I
It's
googled it
just
and then
hard
I
to
realized it
pronounce.
was a flower. But yeah, no, at first, when I first read it, it was like, okay, this is just like too informal for a first name. And then I realized it was a flower. So yeah.
I mean, Araminta is also kind of out there.
Well, okay, because I think flower names are pretty, but like I could see why it's not fancy. Like if you think like the name like Rose or like Violet, sorry,
Violet.
Violet, Hyacinth. The Bridgerton flower names are like more classy. Posy, I think it sounds very contemporary. I like it. If your first language isn't English, or even if you're a little kid, you hear Posy, you'll be like, oh, like poser or whatever. Because as I worked with kids, and like sometimes they would hear a name and they make fun of it.
Can I tell you about my first impression of the sisters? Like, I know it's like the whole stepsister thing, but what I like is that they kind of show like two sides of the same coin. Even if Sophie was not in the picture, Posy is the next person to be picked on by Araminta. Feels like she's like a little bit like Penelope.
Yeah, no, like Posy does feel like her status in the family. A lot of stuff about her is kind of similar to Penelope.
Apparently, she's sharing a lot of scenes with Penelope.
Yeah, she does feel like little Penelope Jr. in the books as well. And like you kind of root for her in a similar way. She's kind of like because Penelope had time to like grow and mature and kind of like come into her own in both the books and the show. And Posy is kind of like before that development when she's like a little more downtrodden.
Not gonna lie, a lot of times, with the Cinderella, many times it's just one stepsister because who needs two? Like, my favorite Cinderella is Tři oříšky. There is one stepsister and works just fine.
Yeah.
But I actually really like, the idea of Rosamund being kind of this, while Posy would be more... Posy? I'm so sorry.
Posy, yeah.
Posy, okay. She will be more quirky girl, just trying to live her life in Araminta's world.
I'm kind of interested to see, how does that pattern break? Because, there's someone who really absorbs everything like the parent and someone who kind of changes the pattern by going everything that the parent is against. Because there's that picture of Entertainment Weekly where we see Rosamund like sucking on a biscuit and Hyacinth and Eloise are looking at her with like, and Posy is kind of concerned for her. So I thought like the picture painted like 100 of words. We always see the sisters so like stuck to glue, like in a Cinderella story or the Cinderella movie with Ella James. Lily James.
Lily James. I have to say, I love that Cinderella movie. It's like visually so
overrated, guys. Overrated.
No, it's so pretty.
Sorry, guys. I was spoiled as a young child. I'm not certain how much I want to spoil, the story we have not yet seen. I don't want to, possibly spoil like some bigger surprises, in season 4. I understand that we said, we can spoil book, but all I will say is that Possy's arc sparks my interest going forward. I think that they will stick to what happens in the book at the end of the book. This is all I'm going to, say on the topic. But what of Rosamund? I think that we can probably see Araminta ending the season as defeated villain in some case or form, but what of Rosamund? Will she share her fate or will she break the cycle?
I really want her to break the cycle. I have empathy because, I've mentioned this before, but I really like Little Fires Everywhere. Show spoiler, if you've not watched the miniseries, you can skip ahead a little bit. Like Rosamund, like there's a character, Lexi, who is basically her mother's mini-me. And at one point it becomes so bad and like says something so unforgivable. Araminta's counterpart, like that mother, because she's such a perfectionist, that immediately the daughter, Lexi, is so dissuaded, that finally understanding, how awful, be absorbing these values are. She's able to turn around and do something. And it's not enough. It's too late by that point. But it's something where, you come with a sense of hope that, okay, there is hope for her. She's still going to do something different. And I hope that they do that with Araminta. Because I think a lot of the times, especially when you're knocked down a peg, like be it with Portia, or be it with the Bridgertons, or be it with
Cressida.
Yeah. So especially when you're knocked down a peg and you have to go at rock bottom, there's no way to go but up. So I don't know how they can do that with Rosamund, what we've seen of the book canon so far. I'm hopeful, that the show does something.
When I was reading the book, I felt like Rosamund is, there is no point in having her in the book, for me at least. She, just did what Araminta could do in the scene. I must, say that I stick to my headcanon. Please, some false Lady in Silver, bungalow by Araminta, because it could give, Rosamund, possibly Posy, if they will choose to do it this way, something to do. Because we know that Rosamund will go after Benedict, but there must be the reason why we have still from episode 6 with them sitting, in the Bridgerton room.
I hope they do that too, because I think it'll be interesting. I love the moments in Bridgerton where, as the audience, you're kind of like yelling at the screen. I know people don't like that. Like, people don't like the love triangle. I kind of like all that drama. That's like part of why I like Bridgerton. The sort of aspects of Bridgerton, the fact that it marries these like romance novel plots, which honestly, there's not that much plot in the novels, so it wouldn't work on the screen, with some kind of aspects of like telenovela or like Turkish soap opera. Even for my favorite characters, like I always loved Penelope from season 1, but every time Cressida was mean to her, that was enjoyable to watch.
As well,
like,
yeah.
Or like the guy, Lord Fife, when he comes with his evil, like swirly martini. To me, that's fun. That's part of what makes it like fun popcorn entertainment. So I'm sort of looking forward to Rosamund being horrible, and also maybe we do get a little bit of drama with the fake Lady in Silver. I think that's exciting. But I'm here. I am like, this is my unpopular opinion. Is like I am even a fan of like The Wedding in season 2, which everybody hated in the fandom. But I will say, like, a lot of casual fans, like myself at the time, enjoyed. I just want to see, some fun drama. As long as people aren't acting out of character, I'm all for it.
Yeah, like it's very, very human. People, like, they have moments of maturity, but sometimes you don't. Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with Rosamund, but okay, can I say that I'm not a very big supporter of the fake Lady in Silver theory?
Only because disagreement is interesting.
No, only because it's that, like, she's so big and loud and proud with the queen, like, because to impress the queen with her dress, that it's going to be very difficult for her to sell, her being the Lady in Silver.
What if it's Posy for this reason? Because Rosamund was so, elaborate with her dress that people remember, but instead, Posy will be forced by Araminta to be, pretend that she was the Lady in Silver.
I mean, it could work. It could work,
And
but
Sophie would be conflicted by that point.
Yeah, I don't
Likely.
enjoy that as much because
Not so
I
in
think I
case of
want the
Rosamund.
whole time to be like I want it to be like the mean one, you know? Like I don't
Yeah.
I think it'll
The
take away
reason
from
why
the
I say
popcorn
this is
drama.
I completely got you, Joe, but the reason why I thought about this also because firstly it creates the rift between the sisters in a different way.
Yeah.
Secondly, for the first time in her life, Posy is important to Araminta because, I need to, now play this figure. And if Rosamund for, the previous episode was forcibly, throwing herself at Benedict by, I don't know, pretending that she likes painting, I'm not certain. If you were trying to catch Benedict's attention, I'm not certain how you will, approach it. I will leave it to you.
It sounds very plausible. I think she's gonna say, "Oh, Rosamund is Lady in Silver." It's sort of like the whole Cressida goes like, "I am Lady Whistledown." It's like people are not gonna believe. Like I think it's just kind of like she's saying it, but is it believable? Is a different thing.
because I think would have been nice is that maybe they say, I know who the lady in silver is, but I can't tell you that. Or like
Oh,
it kind of like something where they twist the narrative, or they say like she left, like we don't know where she is, but we are connected to her, and so like
That's completely
manipulate.
fine, but do not, just leave it hanging there. Like, use it. Other than that, what will they do for the rest of the, show until, the thing happens, which I don't want to spoil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, it's really because we've had so many high stakes situations in Bridgerton. It would be nice where it's a little more on a personal level. Like the
Yeah.
personal stakes are more higher than, either just, being under the scrutiny of the queen or being under, because again, the conflict itself of, falling in love with someone, falling in love with a maid was scandal enough. So to have that personal thing of, I can't be with this person. I want to be with this person.
I think you can, play this conflict very nicely, in the forefront. And this gives Posy something to do, Rosamund something to do, Araminta something to do, and possibly Queen Charlotte something to do. If Lady in Silver was this big mystery she never solved, after she already knows who Whistledown is, it brings this also point forward. So just throwing it out there, guys.
These are all
It's written already, so after the season is released and there is no false Lady in Silver, maybe guys return to me. I'll give you some version to it.
I really, really want them to dive down into like either Korean or Chinese culture. I'm probably gonna be more Korean because Sophie is the main character. Have some of that represented because it did that a bit in season 2. I was a little disappointed because I thought they would do that more, like kind of show it a little more off. But I know the actress and the actors, were busy. It'd be interesting, especially like during that era where like. The thought is, people didn't mix. Like, there was some mixing in between. Like, is it, like, at the Ton level? Probably not. But, like, having that represented in a Netflix series would be pretty interesting. There are a lot of, like, mini kingdoms that paid tribute to whatever dynasty was happening at that time. I don't remember. I believe it's probably, like, that era is the Qing dynasty because the Qing dynasty lasted from the 1600s to 1900s or something like that. I could be wrong. I'm pretty bad with it, but I don't think there would be. There's always controversial stuff with history, but like I think they would always tone it down. Like, come on, they didn't even like talk about Napoleon. Even the book mentions it's like, oh, he didn't travel there because the war is getting bad. But nope, he's just traveling through all these countries.
That was a lot of Gun-Li-Baek family discussion. So should we move on to the Sharmas?
Yeah.
Sharmas. Should we just like talk about how they are as a unit? It's so fun to have them be introduced to Madonna's material world.
I love that's one of my favorite scenes in the whole show. Just that scene of them walking in is like so good.
What I like about them is that these are 3 women in the narrative of Bridgerton. Like the feathering things was there in season 1, but we still had a patriarch. So to have a
Yeah, in the background reading newspaper.
Yeah, useless.
but what I was trying to say is to have a completely established family who, lost a patriarch like a couple of years ago, like because the Bridgertons have male members, but this is a solely female family coming from India.
I think like the Sharma is a very good representation. Female-led families, it's still seen as, oh, it's not as good as having quote unquote mother and a father. Kind of like she's a single parent. She's a single parent, and it's always like controversial. And I think it's nice to have that representation there. I know it's through like death, but like, Bridgerton, it's female led too, but it's like not really female ran because Anthony.
I mean, from me, because I think watching the season after moving to the UK myself was something that I was very like able to connect with. The fact is that they are so taken in by the balls, by the Regency, was how I was feeling, like taking in with the UK food and the traditions, and being able to having to withstand cold temperatures, because if you ever want to go to India, go in the winter because it's so nicely cool.
Lovely.
So to have like a winter where you're like shivering so badly was something like Kate, I hate the tea in UK. I still am using my mom's chai packets.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
It was a little Kate moment every time.
So they stole Indian tea and made it worse.
What I have,
Classic British move.
I have my free tea bags and I like put it in filter paper, and so.
I was in the UK once, and we actually had quite a good weather, but sorry, your food was not impressing me at all. I think the Indian food would be too spicy for me, so I'm probably good where I am. Thank you very much.
I mean, then we have mild options. Like Indian food, we have mild options. Like butter chicken is the number one thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll give it a try.
But also what I like is that, again, they created these parallels, especially for season 2 with Kate and Anthony, them being leader after, the patriarch died. And I think what you brought out a nice point, spoiler, about, Mary and Violet being widows who unintentionally parent-find their kids a bit because they were so lost in grief. It's interesting to see how different the dynamic is. But Violet had Anthony, like a male person, taking care of everything, and Daphne and Colin became the more emotional weight bearers. When we've already talked about this, but Mary, like everything, like being the emotional caretaker and the legal caretaker, Kate, having to come in for both of that. So we see how difficult that must have been, comparatively to the Bridgertons. So what were your thoughts on Mary?
I'm a Violet fan, admittedly. I love her. But I think that, like, when you see Mary, like, that's a genuinely, like, emotionally a neglectful parent. And, like, Kate, to me, is a person that is truly parentified in a way that, like, in my mind, Anthony is not as much, which we can get into that. But, like, Kate is truly parentified in a way that feels like a lot of burden to put on one young woman. But I don't hate Mary. Like, I don't think she's malicious at all. She just is, like, kind of a weak person, like kind of a weak character.
I would defend Mary because what we know of her is that she was the Earl's daughter, so she was, even higher than Daphne. We know that she was the diamond, so there were expectations placed upon her. And I must say that I am impressed that person who was in that, circumstances was brave enough to settle for someone so outside her class expectations. And I don't want to, bash on her husband. He was working for the royal family in India. He might have been, ranked higher than Englishton expects him to be, but still she moved in entirely different country, outside of her family, likely outside her friends, and she immediately, had to be mother figure to, maybe 4-year-old Kate at this point. We don't know, when exactly, Mr. Sharma dies. I think that Edwina mentions he died a few years ago. So this could be anything. What can make sense is that he would die around, Kate's debut years or, slightly beforehand.
Yeah.
So then, Kate feels like she is old enough to take upon this burden. Mary, first of all, of course, she was likely grief-stricken, and second of all, she probably didn't have as big a support as Violet did.
That's true.
I know that Mary is very controversial, but I would, give her some slack in this. Joe, go ahead.
That's a good point.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And also because we see classism. Now, if there was a thing between blood versus adoption with the Gun-Li-Baeks, we see, classism with, the Sheffields, that is Mary's parents. Above all else, they were always putting status. Still, after so long, they were not like, oh, our daughter has come back home. You know, they were so, selfish of the fact that Edwina has got a rank, being so dismissive of Kate. That's what I love about the Sharmas. They're so closely knit. And, yes, they do have that sadness where, Edwina, says that, half sister, and then Mary kicks Kate out of the room after the nuptials, its own level of drama. But then Kate thinks they don't love her anymore because, again, the same thing is that I owed you, for taking care of me. She has that own mentality in that some way, and have, Edwina and Mary so shocked, the Kate going into a coma, and then having, I know it is very Bollywood for having somebody look so beautiful when they're asleep and they just wake up.
I know, I remember that where I was like, she's wearing makeup, guys, while she's in a coma. Yeah,
but again, it's not very much of Bollywood all the time because it's the same thing over and over again. But there are some family movies that are so sweet, and to have that incorporated in Bridgerton was so uplifting to watch. And classism, by the way, is still a big thing in India at the moment because there's a caste system. The Romeo and Juliet trope actually would become very famous for us Indians because Romeo and Juliet is the most adapted besides Cinderella for some reason.
I think it makes sense. Family rivalries, maybe between classes. Yeah, I would watch it.
I feel like Romeo and Juliet in an American context doesn't make sense at all because no one listens to their family. You know what I mean? Family doesn't have that much control over you in American culture. And that's something I've noticed coming from a culture where family does have a lot of control over you as an immigrant. That's a big culture clash between me and my parents.
With what I think about Mary is that, yes, she does become a little bit wrapped up in grief. I think what was interesting is that Kate, being a female member, she took over as the alpha in that group. But she does also take accountability that it was not your responsibility to take care of Edwina on your own. She takes accountability with that. She's able to fend off, whatever backstabbing, because we see the rumor from the first episode of season 2 itself, right? Giving that backstory, but also, using that as a point of shame to see that, she could manage it, but she was a little protective when it affected Edwina or affected Kate to some extent. Lady Danbury then steps in, is that you cannot judge Edwina or Kate for what Lady Mary did.
Yeah.
I think she kind of, is more it's long time ago, and look, these girls look very interesting. She kind of plays this card with, picture. They're pretty, they're interesting, and they're, outside of tone.
It's a lot of courage, even for Mary to, give up that, substantial life and go with someone who, was not as, who could have provided for her, but on a limited level. Whatever that came with, including her Kate as a stepchild. I think that was really brave of her. Those were my thoughts on Mary. Rox, go ahead.
I think I was too hard on her. I kind of wish she'd gotten a little more focus, honestly, in the season, because there's sort of different aspects of her personality that I have a hard time reconciling. One is of course, she made this incredibly brave move to run away with the man that she loves, right? Go to another country. And that is incredibly brave. She has a fantastic moment when she defends Kate against her parents, when her parents come to visit, and she says, I have 2 daughters, and she demands that they treat Kate with respect. She's obviously a good person. I mean, I think one of the reasons Kate feels this huge sense of love and obligation to her family is because Mary has been a loving mother figure to her and has done a lot for her. And Kate says that herself. One of the things I love about their family is that yes, they have their issues, but they all clearly love each other. It's a well-intentioned, loving family, not unlike the Bridgertons, that still have some of these unhealthy dynamics that then are come out into the open and start to be healed during the season. But I will say Mary is just in the background for so much of the season. And I think she seems so passive regarding her daughter's debut and all of this stuff. I I sometimes wonder whether the plot required Kate to be the one kind of leading things, so the writers sort of wrote it that way.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make a ton of sense to me, like based on what else we know about Mary's backstory, that she would be that passive. It works for the plot, but if you like think about it hard, it doesn't really hold together as like a character choice. I also think the woman who played Mary did a really good job.
Oh yeah, I agree with this.
Yeah.
I loved her. I especially loved her scene with Anthony in episode 7. You know, he's like, you know, you're taking it very well, you know, all these looks, and like, I'm used to it. And you remember, oh, of course, like she, you know, went against the queen and, you know, slighted her probably more than anyone else at this point. What I wanted to say regarding Mary is the fact that she reads Edwina much better than she ever read Kate. Maybe they're more closer in temperament. You know, I don't have children, but I suppose that it's easier to read children if they are closer in temperament too.
Kind of like Violet.
You know, yeah. Maybe, you know, Kate was so good at, you know, pretending, oh, I don't need a man, you know, I don't care for this. I just want to be a governess, and Edwina will marry and will have beautiful, you know, children, and I will be aunt. And it's weird that Mary took her, you know, at face value. I also get it because, you know, when they were returning to England, it must have felt a bit like maybe personal loss to her. Because she's returning to, you know, place that we know she left with no money or, you know, little to no money. She must, you know, grapple with the fact that she is just a guest at Lady Danbury's house. And she needs to face the queen herself after all this.
Yeah.
And then she's just so in love with the fact that it's working so well that she is just blinded.
I can understand that, and from a characters, when I'm thinking about it, like writing wise, I think what they were trying to do is that Kate became so comfortable with taking on those choices, especially when you have grief. I think this also plays into how Mary grappled with her grief of losing her husband. And also, I think the reason why she's more connected to Edwina is because Edwina really wants validation. We see it in her role as the diamond. She wants to make sure that she's doing everything right. She has to get Kate's stamp of approval. Okay, I don't want to say that it's childish, but she doesn't take agency for herself.
Yeah.
Being
not
the
until the
youngest.
end
She's a bit of a people pleaser as well.
Yeah, not until the end of the story,
being
right?
the youngest person, being the person who like everybody is hinging on, that comes with its own pressures of sort. One of the advantages and disadvantages is that Edwina loses a bit of her agency when trying to make sure everybody is on the same page. The advantage is that she communicates, which Kate doesn't do until she's backed into a corner. Because, again, Kate does not tell Mary or Edwina about the deal. Yeah.
It's kind of weird that Mary, they came to England, and I don't know what was Mary's thought process. She doesn't know about the deal, we learn. So is it just, hey, we have no money left, so let's just try our best, luck in England, and this is all, Mary needs to,
So that was a bit of a plot hole. How come Mary didn't have any thoughts about what her what her parents might be doing or how they would have reacted?
This is what I'm saying. It's like Mary is so sidelined. I guess Kate just told her our best chance of survival is to have Edwina take you and to have her find a good match. But how did Mary think she was going to have a dowry? Did they never have that conversation? This is a plot hole.
I suppose she just, she just hoped that, Edwina will charm someone who doesn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely feels a bit like a plot hole, to be honest.
It very much does.
I feel like the Sharma family dynamic is misunderstood a lot. Not all fans, but I feel like a lot of fans of this show in general have a tendency to see things very black and white and be like, my favorite character is a wronged martyr and everybody else is horrible to them. And so there's this narrative in the fandom that somehow Edwina's the golden child and Kate is this poor, she's like Sophie, you know what I mean? They're horrible to her and they take advantage of her and they don't appreciate her. They don't even love her. And I'm like, that is not what I saw on the screen at all. In my view at all. Every person in the Sharma family, I think was a part of this dynamic and they all contributed to it. They all love each other. And I think Mary's biggest sort of sin is kind of just being unaware. She's wrapped up in her own grief. She's kind of passive. She lets Kate take charge. Do I think that's like a character flaw? Yes. As like a parent, especially, you should sort of like take more on yourself. But it is not at all, to me, it does not seem to me at all like she's malicious. Like, we see that she actually does really like Kate. One of the most moving scenes to me in this show has been the conversation that they had at the end of the season, where she says, "You never had to earn my love. I loved you as a child. Like, I loved you as a daughter from the moment I met you." And I think that they each kind of take responsibility for like their part in this dynamic. And not that I blame Kate, because she's like the child, but she definitely, obviously, the way she dealt with her grief was by trying to take charge of everything and control everything. And Mary's fault is that she like let her. That is parentification. That's not something that you should put on a teenager, essentially, or even somebody in their 20s. I think people also forget Kate's 26. So she probably was like legally an adult already by the time her father died. It's not like she was 11 years old, right?
It's
like,
possible.
It's
yeah,
possible.
We do not know,
We don't know
when exactly he died.
Yeah, but she probably wasn't a very small child.
A lot of kids, especially older children with divorced parents, would take on the role of be like the man or the mom or whatever of the household. I see that in reality, or like someone who was like, "Oh, I got to like protect my mom." Because his parents are divorced. He was 8 or 9, not 10 yet, and had to. He said something like that. It's sort of like, oh, like, no, you don't. Like, your mom's supposed to protect you. You don't have to protect your mom ever. Like, you're a little kid. Sometimes the kids will say stuff like that. And like I sometimes I still don't know where it's from. It could be from like media, people around him. I think Kate kind of had that. Maybe someone said something, oh, like, your dad passed away, you have to be old, like, an adult now, you have to be, like, more mature now, so, like, you know, like, not letting them still be learning and be a little bit immature. I know it was a different world back then, but, like, you know, they're still growing, they're still learning, it's sort of, and then she took on that role, like Mary's role.
I don't think Mary is that blameworthy in this dynamic. Her biggest flaws are that maybe she's like a little bit passive. She was a little bit too wrapped up in her grief, like kind of like Violet. They're supposed to mirror each other, right? And then she allowed Kate to take on more burdens than she really should have. And Mary acknowledges that in the season. Not every parent is able to be that self-aware and like, you know, recognize what they've done wrong and heal the relationship with their children. I don't know. I don't think she's a bad guy, I guess. But I see a lot of people... And I think we should discuss Edwina, because Edwina to me is like the most misunderstood character in all of Bridgerton.
I would actually start with Kate, because I think we got into Edwina a lot last time, and I think Canton fans often complain that, you know, talk about this family is often, you know, about how, you know, Mary, you know, was misunderstood and how Edwina was misunderstood. Maybe I would go by age and start with Kate. I disagree with the notion that, you know, some Canton fans have that Kate is the perfect one, you know, who was just screwed over by everyone else. And this is the story that she needs to get rid of, you know, she needs to get rid of a family. Personally, I loved season 2, and I loved what they did with all, you know, Sharma sisters. I understand, you know, people's, you know, that they thought that, you know, they didn't get as much screen time as, you know, they wanted it to, you know, have. Like to view Kate as a more flawed, you know, human being that some fans view her as, simply because I think it makes her more compelling.
Yeah.
And I want to emphasize that most of Kate's flaws come from the fact that she believes she must earn the love of her family.
100%.
And we do not know how much, you know, this is justified within, you know, the narrative and within the family structure. We only know that Mary met her when she was young. Mary says she loved her from the first moment. But Kate must have felt from the early childhood that she needs to earn that love.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I can explain that. We call it the Indian mentality, but it is something that, you know, we see in a lot of Indians, like especially with terms of the eldest child. So basically the thing is, especially also with the mixed family, right? Because she is a child, like, you know, she's lost her mom. She's got this new mom, and, you know, she has this thing of like, maybe I wasn't enough. Because, I mean, think about it. From Kate's perspective, I think there was like a subconscious thought is like, you know, my dad found love again. Maybe I wasn't enough. Like there was something that corroded her and said, okay, I need to make sure that I am enough. And maybe that crawled into being the best sister possible, being the best daughter possible, being the best caretaker possible.
Working with children before, sometimes sometimes they would say stuff, you're like, oh, what do you mean? You don't have to earn this or earn that. It could have been something that was said in passing, not even like Mary or her father said to her, someone else mentioned it. Sometimes kids misunderstand, and sometimes the way they perceive the world doesn't mean it was right or wrong. It's just how Kate perceived it, and that's how she thought it had to be, and that was correct for her. So I think, and plus Kate's mother died very young, and her father also died, so I think she felt like, oh, she has no parents. In order to be loved, you have to be blood related or something like that. I think maybe it's something like that.
I can understand where she came from, especially because I see it with my mom, because she's also an oldest sister as well. I mean, I have respect to all the elder daughters that deal with this kind of pressure, is much alone even being a biological first child. There is this pressure that I have to set the standard, I have to make sure things are in line. So yeah, I can understand where Kate's coming from. It's a level of trauma in and of itself. Yeah.
That's actually a really helpful context, the eldest child thing, because that's something that I've seen people in the fandom say that, but that's not a thing in Iranian culture to my understanding, at least it's not. I'm an eldest child and I was the irresponsible one of the two of us. Excuse my French. I know we don't love to swear on this podcast, but I always relate the most to the character who's a little bit of a fuck up. And so very often that's the younger child, in narratives. My sister's 7 years younger, but she was I got it together, obviously. I have a good job and a husband, and I was, luckily, fortunately for me, I never struggled with addiction or anything, but compared to the high expectations of my immigrant parents, I was a crazy rebel. And to this day, they're always why are you like this? My poor younger sister was the one who was kind of parentified and who was didn't rebel, did everything right, and I'm sure if she ever watches season 2 of Bridgerton, she's only seen the first season, I'm trying to persuade her to sit down and watch it with me. I'm sure she will relate really hard with this eldest child thing, and I think it presents me a little bit understandably. We love each other, which she's my best friend, but I think she probably has a little bit of understandable resentment in terms of sort of how our family dynamic ended up working, because I sort of never listened to my parents. It put even more pressure on her. So I do think that sometimes people bring that into their understanding of Bridgerton. Everybody who watches the show projects, right? We all do that with all of media. But I sort of think that sometimes that kind of can lead people astray in terms of their interpretation of what's actually on the screen. And I think that eldest daughter thing probably is very much at play with Kate and Edwina. I think that the part people misunderstand is there's not malice on anybody's part, right? Kate and Edwina love each other. I think their sister relationship is actually so realistic and beautiful, where they have this messed up dynamic. Neither of them seems able to get out of it, but until something big happens, right, towards the end of their season, they have to sort of have this big reckoning. But I don't sort of buy this idea that Edwina is this selfish brat, right? she definitely is a little self-centered in the way that teenagers are. She definitely is a little bit naive because she's 18 years old, so who is it? I don't know. I loved their sister relationship. It was definitely my favorite part of the season. I think that by viewing Kate as even more of a martyr than she really is, it warps people's perception of the dynamic.
I think the issue with them is the fact that there is a big age difference between them. They're obviously sisters and they're obviously close, but I think that Edwina is 18 and Kate is 26 when season 2 dropped.
Yeah. 8 years.
So that's 8 years difference, and that's huge. I'm an only child. I have few step siblings, but I gained them, when I was already teen, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm the oldest cousin, and I'm the irresponsible one, and I definitely, thought that I need to be at least somewhat responsible. Whenever I was playing with my younger cousins, the older one was 7 years younger. So, I can get, the age difference thing. And my father is actually the eldest of the trio, which I think contributed to him a lot. So in Czechia, this definitely is also a thing. Maybe not as a thing as in India. I think that, yes, Edwina is, very standard teenager in many ways. And I have many explanations for her behavior. But when I was, rewatching and rewatching and rewatching, trying to see it more from Kate's perspective, I got the sense of her believing that, in Edwina's eyes, she is, just ruin everything. Oh, you do not like my boyfriend, you don't like Anthony, and you do this and this and that. Kate is able to somehow convince, both Mary and Edwina that she is, over guys, above guys. She doesn't care. She just wants to get this done and just move back to India to be a governess. This is the reason why, they just do not, look at her wishes, because her wishes in their mind are clearly elsewhere, and this is just her side hustle, she will do for, the next period. This is about getting Edwina husband, so, we can all move to our, lives.
Yeah.
Mary will somehow, end up somewhere, probably in England, and Kate will just return to India. Regarding Kate, I believe that what Joe said, that's like a culture thing, bigger culture thing that, I can ever relate to and see. My point was how much, not this, it was intentional about how much Mary actually, gave the impression to Kate that she is kind of inferior, going back, or if it's just the standard thing we all do. We all see our childhood in kind of a distorted way. Like, we see ourselves kind of screwed over by parents a lot of times, I believe. I'm not saying we're not. I'm just saying, it's easier to view ourselves as not necessarily victims, but this, this is, true of Kate, and this is true of, I think, everyone,
Everyone's the hero of their own
within the
story.
show. And yeah, exactly. I'm going to remember, the time when my parents, made me angry or sad, when exactly they helped me. Kate is 26, and while she is older than Daphne or Penelope, that doesn't necessarily mean that she should be more mature and more wise. Realize that Edwina is just acting like a standard teenage girl. Kate is, either seen as a martyr, or that people just, focus on, Edwina and Mary's actions and, how to justify them, because they feel like, this is not talked enough in the fandom. So these are two, big camps.
Yeah.
And they very seldomly overlap. And of course, the show is not helping by the fact that Cantony did not get enough screen time in season 3, and they will likely have less and less screen time going forward.
Yeah, some of the
Sorry,
stuff
go
feels
ahead, Joe.
resolved, I guess, to people. I have to say, I do really sympathize. Maybe not empathize because I haven't been in that situation, but Kate to me is one of the most sympathetic characters. I hold less blame for her than almost anybody in the Bridgerton world, and I still don't also blame her family. I just think it's an unfortunate situation, even though I
You blame Anthony. Sorry.
As you know, I'm Anthony's number one hater. So I maybe this is why I'm able to feel so much love for all the Sharmas, is I put 90% of the blame for this situation on Anthony. But I've tried, guys. I've really tried to like Anthony more, but I cannot. But I love Kate, and I just think they did such a good job of showing even though yes, she ends up in this awful situation where she's betraying her sister, who's the person she loves most in the world, you really see every step of the way how she got into that situation. And really her biggest fault was kind of being so selfless, because no human being can be that selfless really in the long run, right? She tried to she was so self-abnegating. She kept trying to give up what she wanted, and sacrifice everything for her family. And those desires eventually bubbled up to the surface because they couldn't be suppressed forever. It ended up blowing up in her face because she tried so hard to make herself small and sacrifice everything for Edwina and Mary.
I would think Kate, it is kind of, I think she plays into the martyr. Like, she is kind of a self-imposed role. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but like a lot of cultures, being the oldest daughter, there's a lot of burden on that. And I think that is me kind of taking on being the oldest child and also a daughter. That like that's why I could relate to Anthony and Kate a lot of times when they make a decision. I'm going like, yeah, I get why they made that decision. It's like the best, but like if I was in that position, I'd probably at that moment I'd probably do the same thing. And then looking back, I'd be like, oh, that was not.
And so I think it's funny because a lot of people, I think, came away from season 2 thinking like that was Anthony's arc. I don't actually see that really as Anthony's arc. We can talk about Anthony's arc later. I have a lot of thoughts. But Kate's arc absolutely was that she was kind of a martyr. Like, she was so selfless, and like her arc really was having to learn that like, yes, you can want things for yourself, and actually that's healthy. Being that selfless, being a martyr is an unhealthy coping mechanism, and actually ultimately ends up hurting everybody around you. So like by the end of the season, she learned to find a balance. You know, like you can still be responsible, you can still be loved. You don't have to earn everybody's love by absolutely sacrificing every single piece of yourself. And I think for that reason, to me, the show did such a good job of putting her in a situation where she's like basically like having an affair with an emotional affair at the very least with her sister's fiance, but you don't blame her. At least I did not blame her. To me, it was very understandable how she found herself in that situation. Each of her choices was kind of understandable at the time. The biggest thing she really did wrong was like lying to Edwina, and you can also see how she's like, if I tell her the truth, this is going to ruin everything. It's going to break her heart.
Exactly.
Kate does get a lot of unwarranted hate to me, but I also don't think Edwina and Mary are villains. I just think it's like one of those situations where like no one's a bad person.
That's what I love about their family a lot, is that this is what can happen when, you're very closely knit, you're trying to keep the peace, and unfortunately a lot of things just keep bubbling over because they don't know. Also, one more thing is that they don't know how to be, vulnerable with each other. Like, it's not their fault. It's not they're doing it on purpose. Like Mary, she doesn't know how to connect with Kate. And Kate keeps going in and in and in until, she finally gets to be vulnerable, at that point when she starts crying and Mary is able to communicate with her that, no, you didn't owe me anything. She's finally able to understand where, part of Kate's behavior is coming from. And then even with Edwina, her crash out, it comes from the fact is that your approval matters to me and you could not give me the decency of being honest with your feelings. And yes, she deserved to be a little bit angry, but then realizing this anger is not worth being on bad terms with my sister, especially after that accident.
That's very helpful, the accident. I'm sorry.
The accident was extremely
we need
convenient.
to reconcile.
Yeah, so cheesy.
Yeah, it's convenient, but it's an eye-opening event for everybody. It's an eye-opening event for Kate as well, because she realizes, okay, I've done this mistake of being physical with my sister's fiancé. I'm supposed to thaw this fire and I feel like I'm failing everyone. It's just that it's something so human and so innate, of wanting to be good enough for someone. And sometimes, whenever you fail, you feel like you've 100% failed. But it's not. It's just a little bump in the road.
People who see Kate as purely a martyr, I think it's to the detriment of the entire story of season 2. Being martyr, just, being so selfless hurts not only you, but people around you as well. I think this is the main point of, the entire arc. And I understand people have issues with it, but Kate is responsible for her own actions. We understand, where she was coming from, but she was the one who came to Anthony and said, do not say anything to Edwina. You will marry her because you already chose her and you will be perfect. And she is gaslighting herself at that point, but she is still the one who, made this active choice. Yeah. It's completely fine to, point out that her choice, came from bad reasons. But if it went this way, it would be a disaster.
Yeah.
Of course, Anthony is the first one who makes the horrible choice by, proposing to Edwina. But Kate does the horrible choice at the end of episode 5.
Yeah.
And that's the point of the story.
That's the point of the
Sorry,
story.
guys.
Like, if they're perfect to begin with, there's no growth.
That's all.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's a really boring story to
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
much
and
more
I also
interesting that
understand-
everyone's imperfect.
Yeah, and I also understand why Kate's doing that. Yeah, I also understand why Kate's doing it because, again, like, you know, she's the one who put the thing of, you know, Edwina must have a love match. She must have someone respectable. She's kind of balancing all the plates possible. And then seeing Edwina so heartbroken of, like, I might lose this match because I love this guy. And then she's also thinking, like, you know, okay, maybe Edwina does love this person because why would she still be so... She's kind of forcing herself into a narrative where, you know, her feelings are not as much, like,
As
she's
of
making
consequence.
herself smaller.
Edwina loves him. That's all that matters.
honestly,
It doesn't matter what
it's so-
what
yeah,
I
what I
feel,
want.
what he feels.
It's very understandable to me as an older sister, even though I was always like the less responsible one, is I love my sister in a way that is a little bit parental because she is 7 years younger. I feel very protective of her. And I would 100% sacrifice myself for her if it ever came down to it. It's not dissimilar to how you like love your child. That part of it was very emotionally resonant to me. And also it made me understand like why Kate, once she hears that Edwina thinks she's in love with Anthony. Now, do I think Edwina's actually in love with Anthony? No. But I don't think she knows. I think she's infatuated. She doesn't really understand what love is because she's 18.
Yeah, I always thought it was a little bit of like a high school crush kind of situation.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
I mean, she's 18.
I mean, it's very much like Colin and Marina.
Even tempered.
Yes. It's sort of, it's not.
Anthony even tempered. Okay.
Yeah. Are you tripping?
Sure.
Like, what is going on? Yeah. It's like the opposite of what he is. That was a great scene.
She's in love with the idea of Anthony he
Yes.
presented. And let's give it to Anthony. He can be charming when he wants to be.
Yeah, I think she's never been, she's being courted by this like wealthy man. He's putting on the charm. He's bringing her gifts, really laying on the charm. Like when they're having conversations, he's very interested in what she has to say. He's very nice to her. It's not like she has experience with men, which is another reason I put more blame on Anthony in this situation because he is a 30-year-old man.
This is an unpopular opinion. I think let's move into Edwina, but I think in terms of the relationship, what from what I saw of it, I think like Anthony and Edwina would have worked. Like if Kate like didn't have feelings completely, and if Edwina and Anthony did get married, like they would have been a cordial relationship. They would have had like that kind of playing house kind of mentality, but there wouldn't be like the thing where they would have communicated or have space to really enjoy each other's presence, because she's never seen Anthony at his worst, right? Because Kate overheard him be so dismissive of women, and so she saw him at his worst moment. So she was privy to those moments, private moments of him.
I'm a bit fearful regarding the age difference, but I think over time they would, be fine. But the issue is that Kate exists, and that when he met Kate and Kate met him.
Yeah.
So I think that, it would be disaster, either way going forward. But were it not for this, I think Edwina and Anthony would be just that okay-ish couple.
I think they'd be
that's what I'm trying to
squabbling,
say.
honestly, where it's like, they've never been in love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that the show did a really good job of showing how they were like really mismatched and how he and Kate were much better matched. I don't think that Anthony can really like love or respect somebody who doesn't challenge him. That's just like his makeup. And maybe in time Edwina would grow to be that person, but she's not that person at age 18. I also would feel really sad for her in that marriage because she really did want love. You can tell she's a little bit of a romantic. She loves to read. And I hope that that's what she finds eventually in her. We learned that she marries somebody in India. I like to think that she ended up with someone who's sort of like a scholar, like from the, the guy she was in love with.
Oh, yeah. I'll mention it last time.
So I think they could be okay long term, but I think there would be a sadness and something missing for both of them.
I think the biggest issue is the Bridgerton siblings, because I just cannot see Edwina, being the Viscountess overlooking Bridgerton chaos.
No way.
Like, it's not working.
She can't do that. Yeah.
Like, she would be fine being friendly to some, but she's younger than, than Benedict and Colin. Like, it would be a bit awkward.
And she doesn't have a strong personality, in like the way that
and she's never been legally, like, she's never been responsible for a household like Kate has. So
Yeah, I
That
don't
would
think
have
it
been
would
a
work. I like
Maybe,
to think
in
Edwina deserves better
2050.
than a husband who's in love with her sister, like that.
Don't worry, guys, I got you. I'm defending Anthony here. What I want to say regarding, I think Kate kind of, she thought herself the best matchmaker. And yes, she is better matchmaker than Anthony, but everyone is better matchmaker than Anthony.
Yeah, true.
She gives Edwina some space, and she lets her, but she has this list of suitors she thinks perfect for her, and this guy is perfect because he likes poetry. And it's clear that Edwina is not feeling this dude at all. I've talked about it, that I think part of the reason why Edwina was drawn to Anthony is because Kate was against Anthony,
100%.
and she didn't really realize it, and it was kind of part of her arc, trying to find herself when her bolder, wiser sister will leave. Not that I'm bashing Kate, like, this is of course Edwina is supposed to, she is 18, like, she is teenager, but she has some agency on her own. But Kate is 26, and she should have realized that, maybe I'm not really feeling Anthony. Maybe this other guy is also not the good match for her. So, yeah.
This is a weird thought, but who might have actually worked really well is Mr. Dorset and Edwina. Like, I know they wanted her to marry.
Oh, yeah.
I really liked Mr. Dorset.
I thought about it.
Yeah.
I think Dorset is perfect for both of them.
I know,
so
honestly,
this only makes me wonder.
I was #Team Dorset. So
Anthony fans, I'm not certain whether they will like this.
I know they won't, but I love Kate. Like, so.
Just we would be fine seeing Dorset and Edwina. Maybe
yes, Dorset and Edwina would have been a sweet match. It's not that I hate it. I liked aspects of Anthony's story, and I agree. Like, it's by the end, it's like, yeah, they're well matched for each other. The show did a good job of showing that they're like, they can go toe to toe. I think that genuinely I have tried really hard to like Anthony, but I will, for the sake of discussion, I will give him grace, because I think like your bias against characters can sometimes really warp your perception of the plot.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm doing my best. It's just like, I think everybody probably has a character on the show. There's like Colin fans that just don't like Colin, and I like some people just don't like Penelope, and like Anthony is that character for me. I just don't like him. But like I objectively realize that like he's not evil. I don't think he's like an evil person. I just thought Kate deserved better. But like, I will do my best when we talk about Anthony season to be more fair to Anthony.
Yeah.
So.
We'll mark this.
I really wish like there was more Sharmas in season 3. I understand why it wasn't the case. I wish it was like more Kate and Anthony. I know Johnny Bailey was busy. Yeah, he was super busy. Like, at least show a little bit of Kate a bit more, because she's the lady of the house, right?
Okay, so thank you guys for all those who have stuck so far. I really missed you guys, so it was really fun doing this episode. So for the time being, my name is Jo.
I'm Spoiler.
And I'm Rox.
See you all next time.
Bye.